Most people think wide bodies start with aggression. Bigger fenders, more angle, more drama. Mine didn't. Mine started with the question, if this car represents survival, struggle, and growth, what should it actually look like? Because if the design didn't match the story, it's just decoration. I'm Johnny Ngo. On this channel, we don't just talk about building cars. We talk about building them with intention. The PBJ Lotus isn't just a project. It's a physical record of a season of my life. Today, I want to walk you through how the wide body was designed. Not the sanding, not the mold making, the thinking. Because fabrication is hard. But design is where most builds fall apart. Here's the uncomfortable truth. A lot of wide bodies aren't designed. They're assembled. A flare from here, a vent from there, a wing that looked good on someone else's car. That's not really design, that's parts collecting. Real designs ask, what is this car supposed to feel like? The Lotus Elise is small, lightweight, precise. If I bolted something extreme onto it, I'd betray the DNA of the car. So the first constraint wasn't, how crazy am I gonna make this? It was, how do I amplify what's already there? Wide doesn't mean bulky. Aggressive doesn't mean chaotic. Track inspired doesn't mean cluttered. The car needs to feel intentional. Now here's something important. I don't have formal aero training. I'm not an engineer. I didn't go to design school. But I've been in this industry long enough to study cars built by people who are smarter, more resourceful, more experienced than I am. So why reinvent the wheel? Design isn't about pretending you invented air. It's about understanding what works and adapting it honestly. My first major build was a Celica. That APR widebody taught me proportions. It taught me visual weight. It taught me how far you can push a panel before it starts looking cartoonish. Some of those proportions influenced this car. Then there's my love for McLaren. The way the 650S and the 675 LT exaggerated the door line, that tension running through the side profile. The Lotus already had a slight protrusion on the door, so I exaggerated it. I gave it more drama, but I made it belong. Then there's Han's RX-7 in Tokyo Drift. The contrast between the orange and the black, it stole the show. I took that idea and I pushed it onto my own direction, exposing carbon in specific areas to create contrast. I realized something. If I leave carbon exposed strategically, it underlines a line I just exaggerated. It's like underlining an important word in a sentence. I didn't copy cars, I studied them. I took characteristics that already existed on my platform and pushed them further. That's influence, not imitation. When I started sketching, I didn't draw vents first. I drew lines and flow. Where does the eye travel? Where does the panel rise? Where does it release tension? The Elise has soft, rounded shapes. If I slapped hyper-angular aero onto it, it would look like two different cars fighting each other. So I let the body define the flow first. Then I designed aero to support it. The aero wasn't the headline, it was the underline. It supported the sentence, it doesn't scream over it. That's why everything feels cohesive, because it was layered in the right order. Let's talk about carbon honestly. This wide body itself, it's carbon fiber. It's not raw, untouched show car weave everywhere. Some areas have a thin layer of body glaze over the carbon to correct the surface imperfections before paint. I didn't choose carbon because it was flashy. I chose it for the performance. The weight reduction, the strength relative to mass, better behavior in an impact compared to fiberglass. This car isn't a trailer queen. It's meant to be driven. Carbon aligned with the mission, not the ego. And when your materials match your purpose, even the imperfections feel honest. The wide body you're seeing now, that's not version 1. There are panels that look good on sketch, but wrong on the car. There were flares and vents that technically fit, but visually felt heavy. I cut apart finished work before, not because it was terrible, but because it wasn't right. Earlier in my life, I wouldn't have had the patience to do that. Design is subtraction as much as addition. If you can't undo something you've built, you're not designing. You're protecting your pride. And pride ruins builds. This car lives in two worlds, track and show. Most builds pick one. Track builds sacrifice finish, show builds sacrifice function. I refuse to choose. Every flare clears real wheel travel. Every aero surface makes structural sense. Nothing exists just for photos, but it also has to hold visual weight against SEMA level builds. That tension, that's the point. That's the philosophy of this channel. Build something extraordinary without lying to yourself about what it is. Behind every wide body is a series of decisions. What to exaggerate, what to restrain, what to remove, and what to leave alone. The PBJ Lotus wide body isn't just fabrication, it's identity made visible. If you're designing your own build right now, don't start with parts. Start with what the car represents. Because when the story is clear, the shape follows. And when the shape follows, the build stops looking random and it starts looking inevitable. This is Tuner Playbook. I'll see you next week.